I was not quite sure of what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to work with images and I wanted those images to communicate. So first I was drawn more into, let's say, commercial arts. And I started to work in graphic design first and illustration. They were like my two main fields. And I started to work in the style that I use now, but more for myself. Let's say, like, not with the intention of putting them in galleries or so on. Thanks to my wife, she's the one who really pushed me, who told me like, hey, this is excellent. And I was like, well, yeah, I like it. I like those images, but for years I was doing them just for myself, you know. That was, you know, I had this idea, so I treated them. And yeah, I kept working like this until I realized that there was a certain style that was building, that I started to go into a particular direction. And curiously, I don't see many people working in that style, which is on one side reassuring, but on the other side you feel like, well, am I the only one in that field doing that? Because that, you know, then you feel like you have to create a whole market by yourself. You know, I have already a certain way to train my eye. When I gather material, when I go taking pictures, I already get an idea, even if it's not like a final picture, but I already see with what kind of visual vocabulary I can treat that image. Where your imagination can lead you when you see something that, you know, you see let's say, a landscape that you cannot directly understand. You will start to use your imagination to, you know, try to understand what is happening there. How does that relate to something that you know? And first, I want to offer some space for contemplation. First, I try to take as many images as possible, as many views, and because I know that some elements at first are maybe not a fantastic composition or so on, but there might be elements in there that will be useful, that will work well with that picture. You know, as I use many layers, you know, there might be elements that are just like some light sources that can influence the final image. And it's full of ideas. Basically, anywhere you look, you will have already some compositions. You will have some interaction between several architectural elements, and so this influences me a lot, and that's a very important part of my work. But still, for me, I found some shapes. I found some spaces within spaces. There's a lot to do with that. All those layers, and by, let's say, reconstructing the landscape, you bring into the light some elements that otherwise people tend to ignore. After having seen those images, people can start to have, hopefully, like I say, a new look at their surrounding. You can bring back memories, you can bring back a certain freshness. You know, that I think that whatever setting I give you, you will see something in it. Another person will see something in it. I will see something different in it. You really want to have some elements appearing, and other elements you want them to disappear. But this can be, you know, at some point it can become quite complex. In this case, become like a triple or more exposure. Suddenly you have so many possible ways to go, and you need to choose something. At some point you need to go in you have to find what works with that image. So there are some elements that are clear from the beginning, and others that are really the result of experimenting. And this is why it's a fantastic tool. You know, you will have some unexpected happy accidents if you're lucky. That's pretty much this, you know, a big variety of sources, influences, and possible outcomes of inspiration and execution. If I put people in the images, then the viewer tend to focus a lot on those people. You know, it's a normal reaction. And I have the feeling that if I put people, I reduce already the possible storyline, let's say, of the picture. I cannot stop. You know, it's like I guess it must be difficult sometimes to try to get my attention, because I'm like all over the place, you know, like whatever I look, it's like, wow, there's a possible image there. So like it's it's a flow, it doesn't stop. I don't remember who said that inspiration flows only if you open the faucet. And this is it, if you're not working relentlessly, nothing will happen. The muse and the inspiration is not going to be there if you're not at the rendezvous in front of your tools. Oh, you do that with Photoshop. It's like, yeah, but with Word you can write a bestseller or you can write a business letter. It's a tool. It's how you use it, and that's so that's a bit where I'm shy with this idea of when you try to constrain it to Photoshop, or when people mention digital art. What is digital art? It's not a style. It's just a process. All music that is made now is somehow treated digitally. I don't know if that makes it digital music. I start by taking a lot of shots from different distances, different angles, different views. I try to cover pretty much everything that I think is interesting in that place. Basically, I need my images to be, my photograph to be as neutral as possible in order to definitely do my production work. This is really where it takes place. I give a certain setting, but the whole story is not written. You are part of it when you look at it. So yeah, maybe I'm just telling stories to the people, but the stories are like vague enough that you can fill them with what it inspires you. There's definitely a chaotic part in me, but also as a source of inspiration. I think that the chaos is very rich. You can have like a million stories in one view. Multistories, exactly.